Miguel Rojas is back in Dodger Blue for one final ride. The hero of Game 7 is returning on a one-year deal, turning this season into a farewell tour. The clubhouse wanted it, the fans wanted it, and now it's real.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? I'm Harry Ruiz. That's Travis Rodgers, and it's time for Locked On Dodgers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. On today's show, a divisional rival just reached straight into the Dodgers front office and pulled out a big name to try and fix their mess. A franchise legend is sitting out there on the free agent market, and we need to ask if a reunion makes sense. But first, a clubhouse leader and World Series hero is coming back for one last run as Miguel Rojas agreed not only to a one-year deal to close his playing career with the organization, but also, Travis, he's going to stay with the team after he hangs up the cleats.
Yeah, it's great news. I can't wait to talk about it. It's personal. It may or may not be a great baseball decision, but I cannot wait to get into all of it on today's episode of Locked On Dodgers, which is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long.
Travis is holding it down every weekday from 3 to 6 p.m. with the Travis and DeMarco Show on the radio, 710 ESPN LA, or on your phone via the ESPN LA app. Me, I'm behind the mic for USC and the Raiders doing play-by-play in Spanish, but when I'm not calling touchdowns on weekends, I'm right here breaking down Dodger baseball with you. Is this your first time tuning in? Welcome to our squad. And to our everydayers, you're the real MVPs of Locked On Dodgers. The Last Dance. Rojas returns to LA. Miguel Rojas is back for one more year on the diamond, and it feels like a storybook ending. He's 36. He's coming off of one of the biggest swings in Dodgers postseason history, and he signed a one-year, $5.5 million deal to finish where it all started. This is not just a signing. It's a farewell tour, and honestly, fans earned this. Rojas earned this, and let's be clear, the second that baseball left his bat in Game 7, tied the game, and set up a comeback that led to back-to-back championships and back-to-back rings for Miggy Rowe, we all knew right there, Travis. The locker room knew, the front office knew, Miggy Rowe, Shohei knew because he told them, I want to play with you for 10 more years. This right here was a priority, and they were able to keep Miguel Rojas.
Yeah, I'm thrilled that this is the way that it worked out. We played it here on Locked On Dodgers. I got a chance to sit with Miguel Rojas both before he hit the home run and after he hit the home run. He's a fantastic person. He's a really interesting guy. He's done a lot in Major League Baseball. I think that he has an incredibly bright future as a manager. I think this is kind of a two-headed monster here because I think they get the best of both worlds. Now, look, let's kind of get the baseball part of this done first, because bringing him back from a baseball perspective makes some sense, but it doesn't make the most sense in the world. He's an older player. He's somebody that maybe you could play every day, but you probably don't want to play every day. He's more of a role player at this, maybe a 2, 3, 4 times a week guy. And the price is right. So you got him there, but the Dodgers did need to get younger. He does not check that box. He's an older player. So I think that there probably was at least a little bit of a discussion on whether or not this was the right baseball move. Let's move on to the more important part. This is a great idea. This is a great idea because of the fact that he can play every infield position, but more importantly, because of who he is and what he brings to the team and what he brings to the dugout, what he brings to the clubhouse, what he brings to the entire organization from a collective memory standpoint. This is a guy that's going to manage in the big leagues. Having him apprentice or study or whatever you want to call it at the right hand of Dave Roberts, I think is really, really important. I think the Dodgers will get something out of it. I think he will get something out of it. I think this is, I wouldn't be surprised, Harry, if Miguel Rojas is not active a ton this upcoming season. If he's more in, because I know part of the deal was as an advisor, as it's not just exclusively to come and be a player, that this is the transition from his playing career into his post-playing career in Major League Baseball. And I think the Dodgers will benefit greatly from it. And I think this is important too. Miguel Rojas is a great vibes guy. Like he's just one of those guys that everybody on the team gets a positive bounce from. And not because he's a goofball, not because he's not Kike Hernandez who brings a different type of energy to the team. He brings a very positive baseball energy to the team. Think about what he did with Mookie, incredibly selfless to help him. Think about how he can interact with the Latino players, the white players, the Asian players, all of these different groups. Baseball can be really cliquey. He can kind of move in and out of all of these different cliques very, very seamlessly. Everybody listens to him. I think it is a wonderful, wonderful acquisition or retention, or however you want to say it. And I think that the baseball part of it is probably near the bottom of the list. I think all of the other stuff is what made this probably a relatively easy decision for the Dodgers, and I'm thrilled they did it.
When Mookie Betts made the transition from right field to second base, who was there to be a helping hand, to teach him stuff or to help him or suggest or whatever you want to call it? Miguel Rojas. When he switched over to shortstop, to an everyday shortstop, who was there to be a helping hand? Miguel Rojas. When a player is going through a slump, and who's there in their ear like, hey, man, everything's okay, and Miguel Rojas. And even last season, 2025, when Tommy Edman was hurt, when Max Muncy was hurt, who was coming in and giving the Dodgers those bulk innings of help out of the bench to play in those infield positions? Miguel Rojas. I'm knocking on wood over here. Hopefully we're not in a situation where you have half of your infield out of the season because of injuries. But if that's the case, I feel confident with Miguel Rojas being able to deliver for the Dodgers. And that's when he looked best in 2025, when he was playing consistently. Travis, it's very hard to ask a player to come in cold from the bench and deliver 300 plus batting average, deliver power, bring in RBIs left and right, and especially like Miggy Rowe, who's usually batting from the 7, 8, or 9 spot in the lineup, and you're asking them to be a beast. It's very, very difficult for a player like that to deliver, and Miggy Rowe, he was able to do it, and he's not going to be an everyday infielder anymore. No. The Dodgers don't need him to cover that spot. He's a bench weapon and one of the best veteran voices in that clubhouse. And look, his last 2 seasons, 106 OPS plus, the best offensive stretch of his career. He crushes lefties, plays whenever is needed, and he's always ready with the big moment. And there was no bigger moment than Game 7, 9th inning. Dodgers down by 1. Everybody is waiting for him to get out of the way so Shohei Ohtani can have a big moment. And Miggy Rowe said, no, aquí estoy. I'm right here. And bam, he tied the game, and we're able to celebrate a back-to-back championship because of it.
Yeah, it's a wonderful feeling to know that he's going to be back, and because this word gets thrown around a lot, and it's usually right, but I think that it really applies here. He's a pro, right? And what that means is you can put him in almost any situation, and he's going to give you a pretty predictable performance. And like you mentioned a second ago, Harry, this was a guy who was kind of an all-glove, no-bat guy for a good chunk of his career, that was a really smart player that would do the right thing. You could put him at short, he could hold it down, but anything you got offensively was a big surprise. He just wasn't much of a weapon in the batter's box. That's not true anymore. Like the home run certainly came out of nowhere, but he's a guy that can get on base. He's a guy that does hit left-handed pitching pretty well. He's a guy that can lay down a bunt when you need it. He's just a pro. He could go a week without playing, and then you could throw him in there and exactly what it is that you're going to get. I was struck by when I got a chance to sit with him after the World Series championship and talking about getting ready for that at bat and what he was going through in his mind and the calculations of, okay, I'm going to need to put down a bunt. No, now that's changed. Now I'm going to have to find a way to get to first base. And this is how he's going to attack me. This is how he's pitched me before. And just this incredible process of going through all of these things in real time, getting ready to hit one of the biggest home runs in Dodger history. And again, this is a guy who hadn't played in weeks. He didn't play in the World Series until we got well into it, got put into the starting lineup not until Game 6, and he was ready to go. And having guys like that on your team, especially a team that's competing for a World Series for the third consecutive year. It's invaluable. And he's just a good guy. And he's just, it's just great to have him around. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he was on the IL for a while, just because that's the way that it goes, right? He's just an older player, and maybe they need his voice and his presence more than you might need his glove or his bat, but that he can provide both is great news.
And look, there's also, you can go back to his time with the Marlins and Jazz Chisholm, then starting to put out stuff out there of Miggy Rowe not being the person that a lot of people think he is. But I'll take 20, 30 people, 40 people, 50 talking great things about Miggy Rowe versus only one talking about negative stuff from Miguel Rojas, and be like, maybe it's a problem with one person compared to who he really is. And look, in our lives, we always have issues with some folks that we're different to compared to who we are when it's family, when it's friends, when it's coworkers that you respect. So Miggy Rowe, I'll take that with him being the guy that he is. And after 2026, look, this speaks about the character of the guy. The Dodgers have already made the move that he's going to go into player development with the team once his playing career is over. And that's huge, because you keep his baseball IQ, his experience, his leadership in the building, and eventually someday Dave Roberts will stop being the manager of the Dodgers. Is Miguel Rojas the next guy to step up and take that spot with the boys in blue? Because he has made it clear he does want to be a manager in baseball. Well, I feel that it would be a great spot for him in LA.
Yeah, here's the problem with that. I agree with you. I just think that Dave Roberts is not an old man. Dave Roberts is a very young man, especially relative to baseball managers. I don't think he's going anywhere anytime soon. And I think there's going to be a line of people that want to hire Miguel Rojas to manage their ball club. So I think he's going to have to go somewhere else and try it for the first time, because I think Dave Roberts is going to hold this down in LA more or less for as long as he wants. And this is probably a topic for another day on Locked On Dodgers, but you could really be looking at a Walter Alston, Tommy Lasorda situation where, all of a sudden you turn around and Dave Roberts is 75 years old and he's still in the dugout doing what he's doing. I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Yeah, no, for Miggy Rowe, this is full circle. I mean, he signed as a minor leaguer. He became a Dodger. He got traded. He came back. He won titles. He hit the most meaningful homer of his life, and now he gets one last dance in blue. It's the perfect ending, in my opinion. Now just give that man his bobblehead. He's never had a bobblehead with the Dodgers. We need one. He's definitely getting one.
Let me tell you this. I would bet you my house, my car, everything in my bank accounts that Miguel Rojas has a bobblehead coming up. I mean, you can take it to the bank.
He deserves it for everything he's done in blue, especially that home run to tie it up in Game 7. All right, next on Locked On Dodgers, Kenley Jansen. Is this reunion even worth talking about or not? The World Cup is coming back to North America for the first time since 1994. And with 48 teams for the first time ever, it's going to be massive. But let's be honest, getting tickets is usually the hardest part. That's why the Game Time app is clutch, finally giving fans a real advantage when it comes to snagging seats. With Game Time, you can track price drops in real time, get alerts when great seats open, and buy tickets the moment they hit the app. It puts the power back in your hands, and it makes going to the World Cup realistic instead of impossible. Here's how it goes. You pull up the app, and the layout makes it so simple to scroll through matchups and compare seat views. You want to go watch the U.S. men's national team in Inglewood or in Seattle? Go to Game Time. You want to go watch Argentina or Portugal with two of the biggest stars in soccer history? Pull up Game Time. Just pick a game, tap a section, and have your tickets locked in within minutes. No confusion, no hunting for fine print. Take the guesswork out of buying World Cup tickets, and every match, every concert or event with Game Time is how you go to them. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, download the app, make an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. Check out our YouTube channel where you can subscribe for free. Smash that notification bell so you never miss a beat. Full episodes, hot takes, breaking Dodgers news, and more. If it drops, you're on it. That's how you become an everydayer here on Locked On Dodgers. Should Kenley come home? Kenley Jansen is Dodgers royalty. He's the all-time saves leader in franchise history with 350. He's only 24 away from becoming only the third pitcher ever with 500. And last year at age 37, Travis, he was still nails. 29 saves and 30 chances, 2.59 ERA. He had a better season than Ryan Helsley and Devin Williams. That is wild. So naturally, the question is, should the Dodgers consider bringing him back?
I think it's a really interesting question. I think it depends on what you're asking him to do, because the numbers that you talked about, Harry, they're accurate. They're the real numbers, but there's, I kind of like to do a mix of the traditional numbers like saves and batting average against and, all that kind of stuff. And then there's some of the more advanced metrics. I think one of the better metrics is, the hard hit rate. Kenley Jansen's hard hit rate was really high. They hit him hard frequently. And that's one of those that makes you go, because as a closer, that's a little bit scary. He pitched on a terrible team. I think that matters too. The stakes involved in pitching for the Angels are different than the stakes involved in pitching for a championship caliber team. Now, can he pitch in a championship caliber? Of course he can. We've seen him do it before. I just don't know if we've seen him do it with this stuff before. He's probably going to go to the Hall of Fame at some point. I really think that that's likely. He will go into the Hall of Fame almost assuredly as a Dodger because his best moments came in Los Angeles. I think if you can get him at the right price, I think if you can put him in the right role, namely a guy that can just eat some innings in the bullpen over the course of a season, I don't think you bring him in here to be your ninth inning guy. If he morphs into that, fine. I don't think that that's something that you actively try to avoid, but I think this is more of a, can he fill a role for your team and what you need, not as a, hey, we need a ninth inning guy or maybe even an eighth inning guy. I mean, we've seen that we've been there. And that was a long time ago, right? He's been gone for a minute or two. I wouldn't hate it if he came back, but I think thinking that he's going to come back in and be California love, the bullpen swings open in the ninth inning and here he comes, he's not that guy anymore.
Yeah, let's break both sides. And you already brought up some of them. Here's some more stuff. Bullpen depth matters. You don't want to go into a title defense with a thin late game structure, which unfortunately for the Dodgers, that's how it felt in 2025. That the bullpen, the late inning guys, the high leverage guys, they weren't delivering, and you were just playing a matchup game and hoping that the young fellas would take you through the 7th, 8th, and 9th innings. And then another thing, if Tanner Scott struggles, I feel Kenley could be insurance. Like you've said throughout our offseason now that the Dodgers won the World Series championship, it's like, hey, you can still give Tanner Scott a chance, but I'm like, you better have somebody back there in case he is not that guy. And then another one, he knows Los Angeles. There's not going to be any learning curve, no spotlight shock. He's done it here, and he would just be coming back. And then his cutter still plays. It's the same pitch, same deception, still gets out. But I also agree with you why it might not work. The hard hit rate, you brought it up. It was a problem since before 2021, which was Kenley's last season in blue. And it was something where it was like, oh, boy, okay, if he gets 3 outs, we're good. But there's also a chance if it's a 1-run lead that guy up at the plate is going to hit a home run and tie the game up with one switch. And now another thing, he's not the closer anymore. I feel like if he gets brought in by the Dodgers, he would have to accept that. I know that he's very close to 500, and it would be like, hey, look, you're going to get chances if Tanner Scott looks like the Tanner Scott of 2025. And I honestly feel there's a good chance that happens. So it would just be a closer in waiting, waiting to get saves, and it would be a good chance. And then another thing is that the Dodgers, I feel that eventually are going to start prioritizing youth and eventually bring in that next closer from the system that they already have with players with a lot of nasty stuff. So there's pros, there's cons, there's why yes, there's why no's.
I think that this kind of goes really well together, I think, with the Miguel Rojas conversation we were having a second ago. And I like what they did with Rojas. I think that it was mostly a good decision based on what he can do for you moving forward and what he can do for your organization. But I don't think that there's any way you could reasonably say there wasn't a little bit of nostalgia, a little bit of thank you, a little bit of, hey, we appreciate everything you've done for us over the years. Here's one last chance to go around the track with us. And then I'm okay with that. I think that's fine. You can't do that a lot. you really need to be very strategic of who you give those thank you deals to. They just carried Clayton Kershaw for a couple of seasons on thank you deals because he earned it. I think Miguel Rojas has earned it. The Jansen thing isn't exactly a thank you deal, but at least we're in the neighborhood of a thank you deal for everything that he's done. Because if Kenley Jansen had had his best days, just throwing a team out there for the Seattle Mariners, I don't think you're really thinking about doing this, right? I think this would be one of those, yeah, okay, fine. Not interested. Thank you for calling, but we're going to go in a different direction for exactly the reason that you just laid out, Harry, which is Dodgers need to get younger. They really need to get younger. And look, we talked about it yesterday. The everydayers will remember this conversation. The Dodgers are the World Series favorites going into this, but their margins each season get a little more narrow just because their best players are getting a little bit older. I don't think that you want to add a ton of age without having a pretty good idea of exactly what it is that you're going to get. And with Jansen, I think there's some idea, but I don't think it's a great idea. I think it's when the dust settles, when we're getting closer to spring training, and if he's still available and you need a guy, sure. But I don't think this is a move that you make just because, hey, we know that guy. You know, we all love to hear the song when he comes into the game. It's a great vibe in Dodger Stadium when that happens. But he is an older player with some metrics that make you eyebrows go up. So I would think long and hard about doing this. If it happens, not the end of the world, but I wouldn't be racing to get Kenley Jansen back in the fold.
Yeah, I think Kenley makes sense only if the market leaves him wanting and waiting. He's not plan A. He's not plan B. He's plan just in case. If everyone stays healthy and performs, you might not need him. But if something goes wrong, Kenley Jansen in September and October is something I wouldn't turn down compared to okay, who would you rather? Tanner Scott, Kirby Yates, or Kenley Jansen? I'm like, well, I would say the lesser of three evils right there. I would go with Kenley Jansen out of those guys because I actually saw him with the Dodgers for over a decade. And it's like, okay, give me one of those guys instead of the hope of these guys end up having their stuff. Obviously, Kirby ain't on the team no more. Tanner is still on the team, but I'm like, let's see.
You and I disagree on this. I understand. I would take Tanner Scott 100 times out of 100 before I would take Kenley Jansen. Tanner Scott was a good player far more recently than Kenley Jansen was. I know he had a terrible year, but the stuff is still high-level stuff. Kenley's stuff is more mental. Kenley's stuff is more experience. Kenley's stuff is more understanding the situation. He doesn't miss bats the way that Tanner Scott can. I know he didn't. I know he had a terrible year, but I'm still hopeful that he can rediscover that. I like how you said it. If Kenley Jansen is your just-in-case option, okay, cool. But I really think they need to start getting younger, on the mound in particular.
No doubt about it. And I mean, double-digit blown saves for Tanner Scott. I don't think that Kenley Jansen had that kind of numbers throughout his career.
They didn't win enough games to give him a chance.
Yeah, right there. Exactly. There were times that it was tough, but I'll say that. Even with the Dodgers, I don't feel he got to 10 in one season with the Dodgers. So for me, if the price is reasonable, if he accepts the rule, I'm listening. I'm intrigued. Coming up on Locked On Dodgers, the Rockies are trying to fix a mess, a huge one out there in Colorado. They just stole a top Dodgers executive who knows how to help build a championship franchise.
NFL Sundays, they move fast, right? One big play and suddenly, wait, what happened? Everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so incredibly exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time, because with FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Think about that Rams and Panthers game that we just watched last week. And it just, depending on the play, you felt totally different play to play. And that's where live betting is best, when the game starts to shift, right? All of a sudden, Bryce Young hits a big one. You're thinking, oh my God, the Rams aren't going to be able to get this done. The defense tightens up. They knock the ball out on third down, and the momentum flips after a turnover. Rams had 3 of those. FanDuel will let you jump into the moment. Live spreads and money lines, boom, adjust instantly. Player prop updates as guys start to get hot. You can bet the next touchdown scorer, drive results, totals, and a whole lot more. It keeps you locked in to every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you.
Don't forget to follow Locked On Dodgers, not only on YouTube, but on X, Instagram, and TikTok as well. You can find Travis on social media at Travis Rodgers on X and Instagram. Meanwhile, I'm at Harry Ruiz on X, at Harry_Ruiz on Instagram, and at Harry Ruiz_ on TikTok. The Rockies raid the Dodgers for an office. This one quietly matters. The Colorado Rockies hired Josh Byrnes away from the Dodgers to become their general manager. And if you know baseball front offices, this is a big deal. Josh Byrnes was part of a front office that built 3 championships in 5 seasons for the Dodgers, in 6 seasons, sorry. He was a major voice in the room, and now he joins Paul DePodesta in Colorado, the old Moneyball mind, trying to fix a team that has 3 straight 100-loss seasons, a roster that never seems to work, and a major contract in Chris Bryant that weighs everything down. Colorado is not a threat today, but this is how a rebuild starts, Travis.
Yeah, it can. It's funny. I was listening to a podcast about this the other day. It wasn't about him specifically. It was more about the Rockies organization globally, and it's kind of looked at as the ultimate challenge in Major League Baseball. That this is the job that if you can make that work, you might be the best at this. And like, think about what Theo Epstein did in Boston, right? He broke the curse. Then he goes to Chicago and he breaks the curse there. He brings championships to both of those organizations after not having had them there for literally 100 years. The Rockies are the next thing that somebody has to crack, because it's not just that they don't spend a lot of money. It's that they are analytically behind just about everybody else. Their talent pool is near the bottom of the 30 teams in Major League Baseball, both at the major league and minor league level. And then lastly, you have the ultimate wild card that you're playing a different sport than everybody is. That you're playing in an environment that is just radically different than the 29 other teams. And you almost have to build one team to play in Coors Field and one team to play in the 29 other cities in baseball. That's an incredible challenge. I would hire Dodger executives. If I were running another team, it's the first place I'd go look. I'd go first, if I had all the money in the world to buy a team, my first call would be to Andrew Friedman and say, what does it take? And then he would say to me, why would I ever leave Los Angeles? And I would say, good point, Andrew. Do you have anybody that you would recommend? And then we'd go start shopping in that end of the pool. But yeah, I mean, this is what happens. I do the Locked On Rams podcast as well as the Dodger one here. And we talk about this on Locked On Rams all the time. People come and take Sean McVay's coaches every year. Every year, somebody comes in and takes a coach or two, or sometimes even more than that, to go be head coaches in other places. And one of the things that I think McVay is incredibly good at is replacing talent with more talent and identifying other talented guys to backfill these jobs so they can continue to be successful in Los Angeles with the Rams, but so they can also go in other places. I think Friedman's really good at that too. I think he's very good at knowing to have that pipeline filled, not just on the field, but in the front office as well. So I wish him luck. I hope that he does a good job in Colorado. It's a fascinating puzzle to try to put together, but I think as long as Andrew Friedman, much like Sean McVay, as long as the guy at the top of the food chain is still the same, I think they're going to continue to be the team to beat.
2 quick things of names that you just brought up. Sean McVay, crazy. He ain't even 40 years old, and look at the coaching tree that he has all around the NFL. And then Theo Epstein. You talk about like a guy that came in and he broke 2 curses, and he's considered one of the greatest executives in baseball history. He's won 3 World Series titles. Yes, he broke the curse in Boston. He broke the curse in Chicago. But besides breaking those curses, he only has 1 more World Series ring besides those 2. And he's considered one of the greatest ever. And now he helps out that ownership group with soccer teams and more ventures that they have out of there. Friedman, look at him with the Dodgers. He already has 3 rings and he keeps pointing up higher. And that's the cool part now, that he is able to let the guys that he has beneath him or with him in the front office besides him to be able to go explore. And it happened before. Look at Farhan Zahidi when he went up to San Francisco. Unfortunately, it didn't work great for him. The moment he got let go by the Giants, where did he fall back? With Guggenheim, and now he's with the Dodgers. He's helping out the Lakers. He's helping out with the Sparks. Smart people, they're always going to find a good home. And right there, good people and smart people, that's how rebuilds start. And he gets a clean slate. He gets to run the show, and he knows the National League West inside out. So I wish him luck, because he's definitely going to need it out there in Denver with the Rockies. But look, Rockies fans should be excited. Dodgers fans, I feel we're fine. You don't lose the empire because of one person, but you always take note.
Yeah, for sure. And look, I'm a Dodger fan. I love talking about the Dodgers. Lived in Los Angeles most of my life, but the Rockies thing is a genuinely interesting animal to try to figure that thing out. You know, there's almost different tiers in this. I don't know if you're an F1 fan, Harry, but there's the teams that compete for the title. There's the group that tries to compete to be in the mid pack, and then there's the bottom of the pack that tries to move up into the middle of the pack. That the bottom's never competing with the top, and unfortunately, baseball's kind of leaning towards that as it's currently constructed. But the Rockies, the Rockies to go from 120 loss team or whatever it was they were last year to just 100, that's an amazing improvement. And to try to just make those incremental improvements along the way, I think would be a fascinating challenge for any executive. And, you know, we get to see the Rockies a lot every year. They're a tough watch, man. They're a really tough watch. But to just, I would think as an executive, that would be a very challenging environment to try to go in and fix.
Yeah, that last tier is pretty much the, hey, we're happy to be here and to get perks, to be able to rub arms with Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton and all that kind of stuff. And it's pretty much the same thing. The Rockies, it's like, hey, man, we're going to get Shohei Ohtani for 7 games at Coors Field because the Dodgers are divisional rivals and we're going to get him to play out here. And it's like, hey, that's pretty much the type of team that they've been over the last, there's pretty few less than the fingers in my hand seasons for them that you're like, yo, they're serious threats right now.
Oh, yeah, no, for sure. What's wild about it, I guess the one thing that the Rockies have kind of going for them a little bit is they've got a great ballpark. They've got really good fans. Like and I get it. When the Dodgers come in, people want to see Shohei hit home runs over those pine trees. I get it. But I've been to Coors Field it's a great environment. It's really beautiful. Denver's a cool city. Like if you could build a little momentum there, I really do think you could make something. We've seen them be competitive before. We've seen them with Todd Helton and Larry Walker and those sort of guys that have been through there before. But where they are right now, my goodness, are they a long way away?
No doubt about it. I don't feel this is going to hurt the Dodgers. And let's see what happens. He goes from being a Dodgers VP to now returning to the Rockies as their GM. He's going to have more power. And that's something that at time, Travis, it's like, it's not much about the money. It's about the opportunities to be able to etch your name and not play in the shadows of the big name executives like Andrew Friedman, Brandon Gomes, and then you be right beneath them. Now he's going to be running the show. He's going to be running point in Colorado. All right, that'll do it for today's episode. Thank you so much for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen. If you're still craving more baseball talk, have the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night be your second listen. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. On Friday's show, Dave Roberts says he supports a salary cap and floor in Major League Baseball. Travis, will this hurt his relationship with players in the Dodgers clubhouse?
Not a chance. They love him. He knows what he's doing. In Dave, I trust.
All right, we're diving deep into that tomorrow. We appreciate you riding with us. Until next time, keep it real. Keep it Dodger Blue.